Hello, good morning everyone. Welcome to Spiritual Saturday Book Club. Before we begin, I'm just going to refresh my page to see who is online. And so over the last couple of sessions, what I've been doing is I've been taking everybody over and through this book by Tsem Rinpoche called Gurus for Hire, Enlightenment for Sale. So in today's session, we're going to be continuing on with the book. So in the previous sessions, what I talked about was the Guru, and this is something that we're going to be continuing today because it actually covers quite a large part of the book. So the book itself is actually divided into three sections. The first is on the Guru, the second is on the center, and the third is on the self. So, as I explained in previous sessions, this book came about after Rinpoche gave a very long 3-day teaching on what it means to have a guru, what it means to have a center, and what it means to work on the self along the spiritual path of transformation. So this was a teaching Rinpoche gave many years ago, and if you do want to watch the entire teaching, which is quite long, which is in 16 parts, you can actually go to Rinpoche's YouTube page, and all 16 parts are there. But what Rinpoche wanted to do after that was to actually extract some of the major points that he discussed and put it into this book. So this book is actually all about how we should view our guru, how we should behave around a guru, why a guru is important, but also the center, where we go to learn the Dharma, and how we should act, how we should behave, and more importantly, how we should think about a Dharma center, what our thinking should be like, and how we should approach it, and also our own self-transformation towards enlightenment. These are all topics that were not often talked about within Dharma practice, but is something that is very important because, as I explained in my last session, a lot of us have preconceived notions of what Dharma practice should be like, what we should be doing, what other people in the center should be doing, how they should act around us, how they should behave. And this doesn't necessarily follow the actual path of practice, as it were, for us. Okay? So just to see who's online, I see Eric Ye, thank you for joining. Alice Tay, good morning. Suk Fan, Leng Myang Lee, good morning. Iman is also online. Pastor Hani is also online. CKCI is also online. Thank you very much for joining me this morning. So last week what I talked about was His Eminence Tsem Rinpoche's experiences with his root guru, who was His Holiness Kyabje Dzong Rinpoche, and I actually went through and talked about some of the similarities and some of the things that Rinpoche said he did throughout his time with Dzong Rinpoche. Rinpoche carried on doing throughout all of his life, and is something that kind of he embodied here in Kechara, and he instilled within the students here and also his teachings. So I'm going to carry on. I appreciate the fact that not everybody out there is going to have a copy of this book. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be reading it section by section so that everybody out there can actually understand and know what this book is about, and then I'll also be explaining it a little bit. So after the section on His Holiness Kyabje Dzong Rinpoche actually starts the kind of Dharma section behind why we need a guru. So I'm going to start the section called the Guru, and there is a little quote at the beginning. No one has ever become enlightened without a teacher. Guru comes from the combination of two Sanskrit words, guna, meaning good qualities, and ruchi, meaning a collection. So guna, and ruchi is a collection of good qualities. Temporarily, for now, we need a guru on the outside, but the outer guru leads us to the inner guru. Without the outer guru, there is no guideline for our practice. It is impossible. And here we see that Rinpoche actually brings up a very good point. And it's a point that I've mentioned before, but it's a very pertinent point to this, to our understanding of the guru and of the path of practice, basically, which is that a lot of us have this notion, especially when we have been brought up in a culture, for example, like in Malaysia, that is culturally Buddhist among certain sections of society, that the Buddha and us, or the enlightened beings and us, are separate. So what we do is we put the Buddhas on a pedestal, which is correct, in fact, because we do venerate them to generate merits. And we put them on we have statues, we have images, and then what we do is we put them on our altar. And when we put them on our altar and start making offerings, we kind of create this distance between ourselves and the enlightened beings. And when we think about Buddhism and Buddhist practice, all we think about is actually making offerings and asking for things. And it's not really about self-transformation anymore. So what happens is, because we create that distance, we kind of, within our own Dharma practice, we don't think that we can actually, as Dharma practitioners, achieve enlightenment. So we kind of limit ourselves from the idea that we can actually achieve enlightenment ourselves. And when we do that, we actually find over time that we actually start to practice less and less Dharma. And by Dharma, I don't mean what I call formal Dharma, which is what is done in front of your altar. I mean, you can be practicing for years and make abundant offerings to the 3 jewels. You can be engaging in your sadhana every day. But what I mean is, what I like to term as informal Dharma, which is what the Dharma actually is, which is transformation of one's mind. So things like the 6 perfections, things like keeping one's refuge vows and commitments, things like abandoning the 10 non-virtuous actions, these are things that we don't practice within daily life. And when we don't practice these things because there is that separation. The Buddhas embody all of these things. They embody the 6 perfections, for example. But because we create that separation, we ourselves don't actually practice the 6 perfections. Whereas the actual path of the Dharma actually tells us that we should be practicing the 6 perfections. And this links back to this particular paragraph by Rinpoche in this book. And even though it's very small, it's actually very meaningful. And that is that the outer guru leads us to the inner guru. The inner guru is basically our enlightened nature. In Sanskrit, it's called the Tathagata Garbha, and or the potential to become enlightened. And it's the outer guru's kind of responsibility to show us how to practice to actually become enlightened ourselves, to find what is known as the inner guru, which, as I've just explained, the literal term guru means a collection of good qualities. So it's the outer guru's job, as it were, to lead us as Dharma practitioners to find those good inner qualities where we can actually practice the 6 perfections, where we are practicing the 6 perfections, and through that lead us to enlightenment. So we can see here, even just the example of the guru negates this separation that we as Dharma practitioners usually make when it comes to the Buddhas or enlightened beings. And this is, I think, one of the important points that a lot of us miss out. I know I've mentioned this point about this separation before in some of my sessions of Easy Dharma for the New Normal on the Kechara Facebook page. But I don't think at that point that I mentioned that the Guru kind of negates this separation. He is the one that kind of, if we do have this separation within our thinking between ourselves and the enlightened beings, the Guru is the actual one who stops us thinking in this way and changes our way of thinking to be able to do something better, to actually be able to transform our minds. And this, I think, comes across very well when you look at Rinpoche's teachings, for example, on the blog. Rinpoche put a lot of time and effort into making sure that the Dharma was on the blog so anybody can go there and actually read. But it's actually up to us to actually do that, and it's up to us to actually put that into practice. So if we're serious about our practice of Buddhism, our Dharma practice, or even just our serious about wanting to transform ourselves to become better people, to transform our lives, to have less suffering, it's kind of our responsibility to actually go out and practice that. So I've seen some more people join. So Lin Man joined. Sharon Ong is also online. Hello, good morning. Pastor Gimli, Jacinta is also here, and Joy is also online. Thank you all very much for joining. If some of the things I've mentioned aren't familiar, such as things like the Six Perfections or taking refuge, etc., do go on to the Kechara Facebook page and look out for the sessions that we've already done live streamings on, either by myself or by Pastor David. We do talk about these things in quite some detail on the Kechara Facebook page. So I've seen Pastor Albert has joined, and LC Toys also joined. Good morning to both of you, and thank you for joining this session. Okay, I'll continue. In worldly life, we need teachers, we need help. Everything we have in life has been acquired from a teacher or someone who has taught us, a parent, a school, a relative, etc. Whenever we want to achieve anything in ordinary worldly situations, we must have someone to guide us and lead the way. We respect that person and we speak nicely and politely to them. If we fight back, show no respect, do not listen, and do the opposite of what the teacher tells us to do, then we will not be able to learn or perceive as quickly. I think this is quite self-evident. When we are learning to do anything from walking, even just from walking, or speaking, learning a language, going to school. Later on, it is, learning a profession, learning how to cook, how to clean, how to live, even just how to brush our teeth. We rely on somebody to be able to teach us. Usually that's a relative or a parent. And later on, when you're in school, it's a teacher. And these are things that are worldly, these are things that are ordinary. But we still need someone to show us the way. This is just for our ordinary lives, which is only for about 60 to 80 years. For our spiritual lives, when we want enlightenment, where the roads and direction are much more complicated, difficult, longer, and even dangerous at times, how can we achieve this without a teacher? There is no way we can achieve this without having a teacher. Not everything can be learned from books. I was just reading a commentary about spiritual teachers, which said very clearly that if we only read books to study, we can only reach a very low point. Many questions cannot be answered. We need a teacher with experience to explain things to us. Actually, this is a point that I explained within my a couple of live streams ago, but I want to reiterate the point, and that is what I term as the blessings of a guru. Now, a lot of us think of blessings as some form of kind of energy or something like that that helps us to achieve something in life. So example, if we're studying and we want to do well in school, we go to a guru or a master and seek blessings so that we can be successful in our studies. If we're in business or we're at work, we go and seek blessings for doing well in business or getting that promotion. Similarly, if you're in a familial life and you're trying to have a family, you go and get blessings to start a family, and so on and so forth. There are many points in time when we actually, throughout our lives, that we actually try to go and seek blessings. Now, for Dharma practitioners, this blessing isn't just something that you get from every now and then. You see, for spiritual lives, the blessing from our guru is actually needed throughout our lives. It is a blessing that is steady. It is a blessing that goes on and continues from the time you take a guru, which will be talked about later, and continue all the way to enlightenment. And what this blessing is this blessing is actually the teachings of the Guru. Now, where this blessing comes from is actually Buddha Shakyamuni. So Buddha Shakyamuni taught the Dharma and imbued, and just by doing that, it is a blessing. Just by hearing the Dharma, learning the Dharma, it is considered a blessing. And this was passed down to his students and his students and his students, all the way in an unbroken line, all the way to Tsem Rinpoche or our own guru, if we have it. If we have another guru, for example. And that is one of the reasons why we say that the teachings that we learn and that our guru embodies should have an unbroken lineage back to its source, which is, in this case, is Buddha Shakyamuni. And in that way, the blessings actually pass down and come to us. And the reason how this happens is actually because Buddhism, especially Dharma practice, it's a living tradition. I like to term it a living tradition. And that basically means that a guru teaches the disciple in a manner that the disciple can understand, that the disciple can contemplate, can meditate on, and can achieve attainments through. It's especially, the paragraph that I just read out is especially poignant for our day and age, in that most of the Dharma texts that we study, that we read, as Rinpoche talked about, is actually based on, was actually written a very long time ago. So since that time, society, our culture, our ways of thinking, our ways of experiencing the world has completely changed. So it needs someone who has learned these teachings and embodies them to be able to teach us in a very contemporary manner how to actually practice it. And that is one of the reasons why the Guru is very important. Now, this is a point that Rinpoche used to stress a lot. He said that in our day and age, it is very difficult for us to actually understand the Dharma, especially kind of the philosophical aspects of it. It's very obscure, which is why Rinpoche kind of embodied the Dharma in everything he did, which is why we as students actually promote Rinpoche's deeds a lot. Because when you look at what Rinpoche did and how he lived, through that you can see how we should be practicing. I think last week I remember talking about one of the things that Rinpoche did was that when anybody came to La Drang, which was Rinpoche's household, or even to Kechara Forest Retreat, whether they be Dharma staff, whether they be contractors, even the cleaners, or our security staff, one of the things that Rinpoche did was he always made sure that they were fed well, that everybody was fed well, that everybody was well. And one of the ways he did this was to provide them with food, to provide them with sustenance. No matter who you were, Rinpoche made sure, and if you were working in Kechara for any length of time, Rinpoche made sure that you were looked after. And this was one of the things that kind of he instilled within the senior students. And especially the Drang staff, because we were actually the ones carrying out the instructions to make sure everybody was well fed, well taken care of, that we should always care about people. And this was actually an example, a living example of how we should care about others. So it was an example of being a compassionate person, because when we think about compassion and when we start practicing compassion, we're actually only compassionate to those people that we know. We're only compassionate to our relatives, to our friends, and then perhaps to some of the colleagues that we actually like. So in this sense, Rinpoche was actually giving us a way to practice compassion in a more broader, general sense, to actually cover the people that, not the people that we don't like, but the people that we didn't know. And when you extend your compassion from people that you like to people that you don't know, following that, it's going to be easier to extend your compassion to actually people that you don't like. And this covers kind of the three types of beings that we have experiences with, the three types of people, and how we think about them. One group is a group that we like, our relatives, our friends, our colleagues. One is a group of people that we don't know, which is most of the world out there, or we hardly even think about everyone else. And the third group is people that we don't like, people that we have had negative experiences with, that has kind of led us to think about those people in a particular negative way. Therefore, we don't like them. And this grouping of people we like, people we don't know, and people we don't like is actually very important, because when it comes to developing compassion, and which is a huge topic within Buddhist practice, it is very important for us to know these three groups of people, because a lot of the meditations and contemplations, especially those covered in the Lam Rim, use these three categories of people to help us generate compassion. Now, Rinpoche didn't necessarily overemphasize these three categories, because Rinpoche's path of practice was very much a living practice, in the sense that it was more about the physical actions. And then when you get into the habit of doing the physical actions, did Rinpoche actually introduce us to these things like these three categories, things like the meditation, contemplations, and compassion. But for Rinpoche, it was more of a kind of a, I'm giving you an instruction, just follow it, just do it. And through that, Rinpoche was kind of habitualizing the physical action, the physical process of actually being a compassionate person, which will then lead to a very easy transformation of the mind, because you're already used to doing the physical expression of compassion just by following his instruction. So I've seen some more people online. Ken Hui is also online, and Jerry Go is also online. So most of the people here are very regular people to our live streaming. So thank you everyone for joining. So where was I? Okay. If books were enough, then the Buddha would have emanated as books. He would never have spoken a single word of teaching. If teachers were not necessary, Buddha would have never manifested as a universal teacher. So this actually goes to back up what I was talking about, what I termed the living tradition, how the blessings of the Buddha actually flow through. The Buddha taught his disciples. He didn't write it down in a book and then hand it over to his disciples. He actually taught them. No one has ever become enlightened without a teacher. It is impossible without a teacher. Not in this world, in this age, at this juncture. There may be other world systems where Buddhas have manifested. turned the wheel of Dharma, and given other sets of teachings where those beings could run on their own for a while. According to what I have studied, it is not like that in this place. Again, if anybody's got any questions about the Guru or relating to the Guru, or even just any, okay, I'm going to open it up today. Even if it's any Dharma questions in general, please do ask on the comments, and I will help to answer them today. In this fortunate eons, 1,000 Buddhas will appear. Okay, so let me explain this a little bit. Each of us has the potential to become a Buddha, and there have been many people, many beings who have achieved enlightenment since Buddha's time. But there is a particular grouping of 1,000 Buddhas. Our particular eon, which is the age that we live in, has a particular sequence of what are known as 1,000 Buddhas. And these 1,000 Buddhas are actually Buddhas who will teach, who are known as wheel-turning Buddhas. What this means is that when they manifest, there will be no Dharma. And what they will do is they will teach the Dharma, teach various ways and practices of gaining enlightenment. And then after them, there will be a succession of masters and disciples who follow their teachings and who they themselves become enlightened and lead others to enlightenment through the teachings of those particular 1,000 Buddhas. But as with anything within samsara, those teachings will eventually fade away. And so then after that, there will be a period of time when there is no Dharma. There is no practices that can lead us out of enlightenment. And after that, another Buddha will manifest and turn the wheel of Dharma, as it were. So the Dharma is alive again within samsara for another period of time. And then again, as with everything in samsara, the teachings will fade. And there will be another period of time when there is no Dharma. So following this cycle, there will be 1,000 Buddhas of our particular eon, or our particular age. So we are actually at the juncture of the fourth Buddha. The fourth Buddha, as I'll explain here, is Buddha Shakyamuni. So before Buddha Shakyamuni, there were three other Buddhas. They were Krukachandra, Kanakamuni, and Kashyapa. So these are the names of the three Buddhas previous to Buddha Shakyamuni. And the fifth Buddha will be the Buddha Maitreya. So Maitreya currently is the ruler of Ganden heaven. And when the time comes, he will pass his crown and his throne in Ganden heaven, Ganden Pure Land, to be more precise, to another bodhisattva, and then Maitreya will take rebirth within samsara and then manifest as a wheel-turning Buddha. So he will be the fifth Buddha of our fortunate eon. And the last Buddha, the 1,000th Buddha, will actually be Vajrapani. It will be the bodhisattva Vajrapani. He will come down and teach the Dharma. Now, when it comes to Dharma practice, not all of these Buddhas will actually teach the Tantra. They will only teach the Sutra method. We're actually very lucky because we've taken rebirth in the eon of Buddha Shakyamuni. And what that means is that the Dharma of Buddha Shakyamuni is still alive. And Shakyamuni actually taught both Sutra and Tantra. And so, as I'm sure everyone here knows, because you're all regular people, Tantra is actually the swift path to enlightenment. So we're actually very fortunate to be able to practice Buddhism at a time when Tantra is alive. So it actually behooves us to actually all strive for tantric practice. And in the process of striving for tantric practice, one needs a firm ground in sutric practice. And the reason why I mentioned this is because what I wanted to mention is the Buddha Maitreya. Now, last week, what I did is, I think not last week, the week before, I took everyone through the Ganden Lagyama for auspicious reasons. And as part of the Ganden Lagyama, one of the things that happens is that we actually create a connection with Maitreya. So most of us know that Tsongkhapa is a manifestation of three bodhisattvas, Manjushri, Chenrezig, and Vajrapani. So when we do the Guru Yoga practice, we are creating a connection with, not only with Lama Tsongkhapa, but also with these three Buddhas. So in a sense, we usually think of the Ganden Lagyama as 3-in-1 because it is a connection with these three Buddhas, but actually we miss out Tsongkhapa himself. We actually term it a 4-in-1 practice, as it were. But actually it's a 5-in-1 practice because it also creates a connection with Maitreya. It creates a connection with Maitreya in the sense that if we practice the Ganden Lagyama well, we can actually be reborn in Ganden Pure Land and actually in front of Maitreya and receive teachings from him. In the case that we don't actualize rebirth within Ganden Pure Land, when we leave our current lives, when we practice the Ganden Lagyama, we're actually creating the causes, if we haven't reached enlightenment at that point, to actually be reborn at the time when Maitreya will manifest as a wheel-turning Buddha and either receive teachings directly from Maitreya as a wheel-turning Buddha, or be alive to be able to continue our Dharma practice during the time when the Dharma of Maitreya Buddha will still be alive. So there was a little bit of a sidetrack, but since a lot of us are regulars here, I just thought I'd bring up that point. Sharon Ong says, Alden is here with me and he says hi. Hi. So, let me backtrack a little bit. In this fortunate eon, 1,000 Buddhas will appear. The fourth Buddha was Buddha Shakyamuni, who manifested 2,500 years ago. Even after Shakyamuni, many superior Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have appeared to teach and benefit, such as Manjushri and Chenrezig. Many great saints and masters, like Jesus Christ and Muhammad, have manifested all over the world. We have not had, and probably will not have, the opportunity to attend their teachings at this time. At our stage, at this point in our lives, we will probably never see the Buddha. This does not mean that the Buddha does not exist. We just do not have the karmic affinity to see an enlightened being. So how can we receive the Dharma if we cannot get the Buddha to teach? In our present pitiful state, where we cannot see the Buddhas, nor receive their teachings and hear from them, who will be compassionate enough to teach us and give us guidance and help? Who will put up with our delusions, our anger, our complaints, and childish problems? Who would do that all day and into the night free of charge with no expectations? Here is an analogy. During a famine, when you are very poor, someone might come along and give you a little bit of money, which you use to start a business. When you become very wealthy, from that business, many rich patrons come to your shop and many people do business with you. Who is kinder, the rich patrons that come later on, or the single person who helped you in the beginning? That person, so the person who helped you in the beginning, is like our Guru, while the Buddhas are like the patrons that come later. We can only see the Buddhas by practice. The practice can only come via our teacher. Without our teacher's blessings, practice instructions, and his giving us the Dharma, how will we ever reach a state where we can actually see the Buddhas, perceive and listen to them directly? In order for wood to catch fire from the sun, we need a magnifying glass. That sun is like the Buddha, the magnifying glass is like your Guru, and the timber or wood is like yourself. If you just stick the wood under the sun, it will never catch fire. It works in this way. The Guru never teaches us in a way that he expects things back from us. Our gurus give out of compassion, with the motivation that we may be free. Our guru teaches us on the basis of compassion and on the basis of reality. He has spent his whole life studying. He has given up his pleasures and worldly pursuits and anxiety for money, position, and status so he can study the Dharma, practice it, and convey it to us to change our lives. When we put our gurus on the throne, it is to show our respect for the Dharma. Monks and teachers are not put on throne in all Buddhist countries to show respect for the Holy Dharma, our second refuge. It is not to uplift that person. How beautiful or ornate the throne is reflects the devotion you have towards the Dharma talks, and the Dharma that is being conveyed from these thrones. So actually here I want to go into a little bit more details, even though what I've just read out is kind of, it matches what I've been saying previously, and is not something that I want to actually go into more, because I've been talking about it on and on and on for quite a while now in the live streamings, and so has Pastor David. And that is the reason, the importance we have a guru is that because without the guru we can't learn the Dharma. And if we don't learn the Dharma, we can't perceive or see the Buddhas to receive higher teachings directly from them. So we need a guru to be able to do that. We need a guru to be able to teach us the Dharma. What I want to talk about a little bit is more of my own experiences with Rinpoche, and more about the Dharma that you might not know. The first is here that Rinpoche is basically talking as if the guru is not an enlightened guru, but just somebody who has been practicing, who has learnt the Dharma, has practiced it, and is conveying it to you. And this is actually Rinpoche being extremely humble. Rinpoche was definitely an enlightened being, and I think for the closer students it was much more evident, because we had a much more direct experience of Rinpoche's deeds and what he did. Excuse me. So a lot of our students and people who followed Rinpoche and how he taught the Dharma actually talked about. We all talked about the fact that Rinpoche was an enlightened being, and that he was manifesting enlightened deeds. And one of the ways that this was kind of exemplified was in Rinpoche's recognition. Rinpoche's previous lives have been some of the greatest masters within Tibetan Buddhism, especially within Vajrayana Buddhism. And all of these masters of the past have actually all been known to have, because they're the same mind stream, they were all known as enlightened beings. So Rinpoche, being the latest of this incarnation lineage, was also an enlightened being, but it goes further than that. Rinpoche was actually a manifestation of Heruka Chakra Samvara, and this is something that was made evident not when Rinpoche was alive, not directly to us as students, but the gurus knew. The other gurus out there, they knew, because there were also enlightened beings. And this actually comes through in a Guru Yoga that has been written and composed by Lama Thupten Purbu, who was a very well-respected and very highly regarded Lama with many attainments himself. And he was requested by his Eminence Ganchen Rinpoche, who's also recently passed into Parinirvana, to write a Guru Yoga focusing on Tsem Rinpoche. So this Guru Yoga has been composed, and it will be made available to everybody online. If you have taken Rinpoche as your Guru, you will be able to engage in this Guru Yoga. I'm currently still composing the article to explain the Guru Yoga and how to go about doing it, and eventually it will be made available online on tsemrinpoche.com. And this actually talks about Rinpoche and Heruka Chakra Samvara being as one. And that is just basically another example, but the main example that I wanted to talk about Rinpoche actually being an enlightened being was actually his actions, his deeds. Coming from the Ladrang and actually seeing Rinpoche's activities, how Rinpoche thought, not how Rinpoche thought, because there's no way that I could even begin to understand how Rinpoche thought, but kind of what he did and how things played out, you could see that Rinpoche was enlightened. There were times when Rinpoche was dealing with students, in the sense that these students had some difficulties, had some problems, limitations as it were, mental limitations that were limiting them from being a better person, from doing more to help others, from transforming themselves. And the way in which Rinpoche actually helped these people through these issues is amazing. Most of the time you weren't even aware of it. And since Rinpoche has passed into Parinirvana, I've spent a lot of time looking back over Rinpoche's actions and what he did and how he helped people overcome things or transform themselves for the better. And most of the time, those people didn't even know what was happening. For example, earlier I was talking about Rinpoche giving instruction to the Ladrang to feed people. And most of the time for us, what we were doing is we were just following Rinpoche's instructions. We weren't thinking about what it meant. We weren't thinking about the deeper connotations, the deeper meaning, the deeper behind it, which, as I explained earlier, is compassion, it's care. And now looking back over it, when I first joined Ladrang to now, and going through all the experience that I did with the Ladrang people, I have actually seen certain people's compassion increase. For example, there is, I'm not going to name any names, there is one lady who we work with and who I'm very close to. When I joined Ladrang, she was very cold. Cold in the sense that she would do things for Rinpoche because Rinpoche is a guru. And she would do things, get along with everybody. But she wasn't a very compassionate person in the sense that she didn't spend... outwardly, she wouldn't care about other people, giving them things or helping them with tasks or whatever. Inwardly, she wasn't compassionate in the sense that she didn't give people her time. She didn't give people her effort to help somebody. If they're going through a problem, she didn't sit with them and try to help them overcome their suffering, give them support when they needed it, give them emotional support, things like that. And one of the things that I saw Rinpoche do is, with this particular woman, is always give her instructions to go and do something for somebody, to go and help somebody, to talk with somebody, to give a gift to somebody, to give somebody food. It was just this. for the majority of the time it was just this. And this woman really did not like talking with people. It was okay, like, very, very casually doing something, but she did not like spending time with people or getting to know people, purely because she had it in her mind that she wasn't going to be friends with them. But then over time, looking at her now from where I first met her a couple of years ago, she's literally a completely different person. She has transformed into a person that's actually very caring, that actually gets along with people a lot better, that actually cares about somebody, whether it's physically caring, giving them a gift, making sure they're well, etc., to actually spending time, to actually talking with somebody. She's transformed, and that kind of came about all through Rinpoche just getting her to do something and telling her, don't even think about it, just follow my instruction, just do what I'm telling you, just do it. And it was a way that Rinpoche kind of imparted the Dharma and Dharma practice in students without actually going into the formal explanation of this is compassion, these are the 3 types of people, you like these people, you don't know these people, and you don't like these people. And Rinpoche didn't do that. When Rinpoche was training students, he would just get them to follow his instruction. And the effect that that's had on people's mind streams is extraordinary. And this is something that Rinpoche, it wasn't just the close students that got this. It was even, in a sense, this is actually kind of broadened to everybody, to anybody who has contact with Rinpoche or knows about Rinpoche or Rinpoche's blog or things like that. For example, Rinpoche was always on about feeding people. He was talking constantly on his blogs. We've got hundreds of articles on feeding the homeless, hundreds of articles on feeding animals, tons. So basically Rinpoche was trying to get people to do it. It was like if you read an article that Rinpoche says, be a compassionate person, feed the homeless. Rinpoche, it wasn't just a thing. For Rinpoche, it wasn't supposed to be just an article you read. For Rinpoche, it was kind of an instruction that he was giving you. If you take Rinpoche as your guru, is that he was giving you instructions to follow. And when you follow these instructions, you actually see your mind transform and become better. So sorry about that. I went off on a bit of a tangent, but it was relevant to what I was talking about. Okay, let's see any comments. There's a comment from Jacinta. Yes, Pastor, a separate Guru Yoga. Yes, it is a separate Guru Yoga. It is a Guru Yoga completely focused on Tsem Rinpoche as as an enlightened being, as a guru, and that will be making available for everyone. Martin says, "Good morning. Good morning to you too." Jacinta asks, Pastor, how did senior students determine the Yidam of Rinpoche in the end? I'm just curious. There was a couple of ways in which this was determined. You see, as students, we actually never knew who Rinpoche's Yidam was. Even as some of the closest students, like the Ladrang staff, we didn't know. And the reason is because we had because Rinpoche had basically memorized all this, his main sadhana he's memorized it. So obviously there were times that where Rinpoche would show us his sadhana book and show us certain prayers, or maybe to the closest students explain the meaning of some of the prayers, for example, like the 21 praises to Tara. That's something that Rinpoche did, was in Rinpoche's sadhana book. Gang Longma was in Rinpoche's sadhana book. Ganden Lagyama, obviously. Rinpoche did the Lama Chopa Puja every single day. Things like that were in his sadhana books. But other things, more tantric in nature, Rinpoche, I think, probably had memorized everything. There were certain prayers to tantric deities, obviously, within Rinpoche's sadhana book, but not something that would point directly to who his yidam was. So for us as students, we didn't know, and Rinpoche actually actively told us that he would not, within his lifetime, he would not reveal to us who his yidam was, and true enough, he never did. It was determined because various signs, I would say, during Rinpoche's cremation, and also because the Guru Yoga was composed by Lama Thupten Purbu, but because it was requested by Gangchen Rinpoche. So I think Gangchen Rinpoche from the beginning knew who, because he was one of Rinpoche's gurus, he would have known, I think he would have known, because Rinpoche did spend a lot of time with Gangchen Rinpoche. And in fact, Rinpoche actually completed some of his tantric retreats under Gangchen Rinpoche. So the tantric commitments that Tsem Rinpoche had, some of them were actually completed under Gangchen Rinpoche as his guru. So I think Gangchen Rinpoche definitely knew who Rinpoche's yidam was. So in that way, we came, as students, we came to know who Rinpoche's yidam was. Okay, we have a lot more comments. Thank you, Pastor Niral, for sharing about the special Guru Yoga of Rinpoche by Lama Thupten Purbu. Can people sponsor this Guru Yoga article of yours? If so, how can we do this and dedicate it? If you would like to sponsor, there is you can go to Vajra Secrets. There is a Dharma book fund where you can sponsor Dharma books. Even though that's specifically for Dharma books, in the dedication you can put in that it is for this particular article, and we can and once it gets to the writers, which is the Ladrang team anyway, we will do the necessary thing to dedicate that particular article to whoever would like to sponsor. Yiling is online. Good morning. I hope it's good morning here. Good evening for you, I think. Sharon says, some of the students who can see auras have shared that Rinpoche has a beautiful radiant white aura around him, something that is usually seen around holy or enlightened beings. Yeah. If you had watched my live streaming about the marks of a Buddha's body or the marks of an enlightened being, it says that they do have this light that emanates from them. So it seems like there's a light that kind of envelops them, but it's not actually enveloping enlightened beings. It actually radiates out from an enlightened being. And this is different, as Sharon said, from a normal aura. Waying is also online. Callista, also online. Good morning. Joy Kam says, when Rinpoche says this. Just follow my instructions. It is a literal blessing. You follow it and gain some realization along the way. Absolutely correct. Actually, Rinpoche used to say that a lot, because certain times when Rinpoche asked you to do something or to carry out an instruction or a particular job or whatever, sometimes it could seem quite strange. Or sometimes you had no idea what the situation had to do with you, and why Rinpoche was asking you to get involved in the situation, or sometimes it would be very difficult for us to understand why Rinpoche asked you to do that. But and in those situations, Rinpoche would just say, don't think about it. Just follow my instructions, and everything will work out. And and surely, in the end, you would kind of figure out why. And if you hadn't figured out why, once you finished that particular instruction, it might hit you further along the line. There's certain instructions that Rinpoche asked me to do, for example, that I did, and I had no idea why Rinpoche asked me to do it. I kind of still didn't have an idea, and only now, I think, as I have trying to get a more firmer grasp on the practice of the Dharma, that I am kind of slowly beginning to understand the kind of ramifications of those instructions and how it actually changed me. So it's I agree with Joy. Pastor Gimli says, Rinpoche's method was always action speaks louder than words. Very true. And Jerry Go said, how true of what you said to follow Rinpoche's instructions. Martin asks, Pastor Niral, if there's a Guru Yoga of our Lama, many people would naturally assume that they should be practicing that and not Ganden Lagyama. What's your advice? That is a very, very good question. Now, you see, Guru Yoga is a topic that is, from our perspective, when we think about Guru Yoga, we think that maybe we should only be doing one. And since we're students of Tsem Rinpoche, and once Tsem Rinpoche's Guru Yoga is put up online, people will think that they just need to practice that Guru Yoga, and then they might think of not practicing the Ganden Lagyama anymore. This is actually not a correct way of thinking, and the reason is because within our own lineage, let alone other lineages, there are hundreds and thousands of Guru Yoga texts, and all of them within our lineage are practiced in conjunction with the Ganden Lagyama, and there is a very big reason. You see, the Ganden Lagyama calls upon Lama Tsongkhapa, and remember I was talking about 5 in 1, so it always also calls upon Chenrezig, Manjushri, Vajrapani, and Maitreya. It is the foundation of our lineage, basically. So when we're practicing the Guru Yoga of Lama Tsongkhapa, not only is it a Guru Yoga, it is also a deity practice, and its benefits are huge. Its benefits are varied. The High Lamas are always telling us to practice Lama Tsongkhapa's Guru Yoga, to always be reciting Migsama mantra. On top of that, to practice our Guru Yoga. Okay, in this case of Tsem Rinpoche. So it is not a matter of replacing one with the other. It is actually a matter of practicing both in conjunction. And you're probably going to ask me, and I think the question after that, after I've said that, would be why? Because Why is it? Because when I practice Lama Tsongkhapa's Guru Yoga, I'm visualizing Lama Tsongkhapa, but I have to think about Lama Tsongkhapa as being my guru. But then if there is a Guru Yoga of my guru, of Tsem Rinpoche, and I'm visualizing him as Rinpoche or Hiroka or whoever, and then I focus on that, surely that is more important than the Guru Yoga of Lama Tsongkhapa. And I should just concentrate on that. And actually that's a kind of mistaken way of thinking, because yes, the Guru Yoga of your guru will create a strong connection with your guru, but that connection will be amplified, will be strengthened when you also practice the Guru Yoga of Lama Tsongkhapa. And the point is, the reason is because all of this practice is basically, both of these are termed Guru Yoga because they focus on the Guru figure. And the blessings that you can get from the Guru figure, receiving the blessings, receiving the ability to be able to practice the Dharma that they taught. Now, even though these are termed as Guru Yoga, how I want to answer that question is, both of these strengthen that blessing. But actually, even when you practice a particular deity, for example, if you're practicing Manjushri, for example, Manjushri, when you visualize Manjushri, what you need to think is that Manjushri is also your guru. You visualize your Yidam and your guru as one. In fact, for us, you also visualize your Yidam, for your guru and your protector as one, because we're practicing enlightened protectors. For example, the Shugden not to stop Guru Yoga practice, but actually to practice both in conjunction with that. I hope that makes sense. If anything wasn't clear, please ask me for clarification. Sukhvan has also commented, Pastor, mentioning of Rinpoche's good deeds reminds me of the latest article from Stories from Kechara. Love it, and thank you for the effort of sharing it with all of us and inspiring those stories about Rinpoche. Yep. One of my latest 1 minute stories on the blog is about how Rinpoche helped a woman overcome her difficulties. And that was that's something that is ongoing, was an ongoing thing if you knew Rinpoche. And even still, I think a lot of us are still benefiting from what Rinpoche taught and continuing to carry the instructions that Rinpoche gave, and that will keep transforming our mind. So Elsie asks, Guru Yoga visualize Rinpoche as Lama Tsongkhapa can? Okay, when you practice, you see the normal Guru Yoga that we're practicing is the Guru Yoga of Lama Tsongkhapa. Now, in that, all the visualizations, we don't visualize Rinpoche, we visualize Lama Tsongkhapa. But actually, what you need to do within that Guru Yoga practice is, even though you're visualizing Lama Tsongkhapa, you have to think very strongly that Lama Tsongkhapa is your Guru, is Tsem Rinpoche, okay? You have to think very strongly that Lama Tsongkhapa and Tsem Rinpoche are one, or your Guru and Lama Tsongkhapa are one in nature. What that means is that even though all the visualization, you visualize Tsongkhapa with hat, with the monk's robes, with the sword and the book, with his two disciples, you make offerings, etc. during the Ganden Lagyama, you have to think very strongly that Lama Tsongkhapa and Tsem Rinpoche are one. That is actually what turns it into a Guru Yoga, is that the strength and conviction behind your visualization and your thinking about your visualization of Lama Tsongkhapa, you have to think strongly that it is Rinpoche. So that is for Lama Tsongkhapa's Guru Yoga. Tsem Rinpoche's Guru Yoga, the visualization will be different, but that will be explained in the article once it's published. Jacinta, if I heard correctly just now, Pastor said we will have an article about that and it will be explained, right? In that case, we will wait for it. Yes, in that article, the prayers will be provided in the article, and the explanation of the Guru Yoga will also be provided in there, with the explanation of what to visualize. Okay, so there's a couple of more points actually I wanted to cover. Actually, I haven't been able to cover that many. I've only covered 3 pages today. There's another point that I wanted to make. Let me see if I can remember it. Oh, it's the last paragraph. So in the last paragraph, it talks about how gurus sit on thrones, and how the throne is meant to it is meant to show our respect for the Dharma that the Guru embodies, that the Guru is practicing, and the Guru is sharing with all of us, so that we can transform our lives. Now, if you think about it from a secular perspective, I'm sure all of you have seen some of the thrones that the High Lamas sit on. In fact, the thrones that we have in Kechara Forest Retreat are actually quite humble compared to some of the other thrones that the High Lamas sit on. And Rinpoche was the highest Lama, one of the highest Lamas within our lineage. And a lot of the times, if from a secular perspective, if you actually sat on a throne like that, look at just the word, if you sit on a throne, you would probably think, oh my God, I'm sitting on a throne, look at me, I'm very, I'm above the people who are sitting on chairs, I'm above the people who are sitting on the floor. I am teaching all of these people in front of me. So you would think that there is a danger that the person sitting on the throne, if they're not an enlightened being, and I'm not talking about Rinpoche, I'm talking about other people who may be who may be teaching or sharing the Dharma when they sit on the throne to teach or share the Dharma with you, you would think that in their cases that there would be a possibility that ego could arise, that they could start feeling proud, or start feeling that they're better than other people when they sit on these thrones. Now, this is very much addressed within conduct for a person who teaches the Dharma or who shares the Dharma. Now, before a Lama sits on a throne, you will see that the Lama himself will actually prostrate to the throne. And he's prostrating to the throne for a very good reason. You see, when a Lama prostrates to the throne before he sits on it, he is doing 2 things. One is he is prostrating to the Dharma or the teachings of the Buddha. Secondly, he is also prostrating to his gurus. Because the procedure before a Lama sits on the throne is actually to visualize one's guru sitting on the throne. And if one can, on top of the guru is the guru's guru, and guru's guru, all the way up to Buddha Shakyamuni. So when the Lama is prostrating, he's actually prostrating to his guru, who is visualized as sitting on the throne. And then when the Lama sits on the throne, the Lama will actually visualize his guru and all the gurus going all the way back up to Buddha Shakyamuni, dissolving into him, so that he can pass on the blessings of the teachings to whoever that he's teaching. And you will also see that when Lamas sit on a throne, they will do a very quick prayer, a very short prayer, and they will click their fingers before they actually sit down. And this is usually it's usually a recitation of the perfection of wisdom of the short Heart Sutra, but it can also be any other verse that is to do with impermanence or emptiness. Okay, and there's a reason for this. It is supposed to. There's two reasons for this. One is to remind the Lama who is actually going to, or whoever is teaching, who is going to sit on the throne, that things like pride, things like having an ego are transitory. They don't actually exist. So rather than that, they should focus on teaching the Dharma to benefit instead. And on the other hand, it is also to remove obstacles. So for the person who is teaching or sharing the Dharma, the obstacle is actually not the Dharma. The obstacle that they would actually face is actually having emotions or feelings of things like pride or ego coming up in their mind streams. And for the people who are receiving the Dharma, the obstacle is cleared that the Lama or the teacher can actually teach the Dharma in a very concise manner, in a manner that would actually get across to you in a better way, that can go into your minds better. Okay, so this is just something that I wanted to talk on, because this is actually something that is you might not know about. Okay, so I'm kind of giving you the background insider scoop of what happens when a Lama sits on the throne. So this verse that's recited is usually the Heart Sutra, is to to remind the person teaching the Dharma not to let the fact that they're sitting on a high throne get to the head to make them proud, or to grow their ego. And secondly, it is also to clear the obstacles for actually the teaching of the Dharma. There is actually an entire procedure when it comes to a Lama teaching on a throne, and it can be simple or it can be quite complex, but it follows a particular sequence. This sequence is set out in the Lam Rim, and this sequence is set out in a way that one allows the person who is teaching to actually call upon the blessings of their Guru and all the lineage masters back up to Buddha Shakyamuni to be able to transmit the Dhamma to whoever they're teaching. Two, to ensure that the fact that they're actually teaching and sitting on an extremely high throne doesn't get to their head if they're not an enlightened being. And three, to actually clear obstacles so that they can teach the Dharma well, so that it can actually benefit people who are watching, who are attending that particular teaching. So I've just seen some more people come online, but actually that's all I have time for today. So thank you very much for joining. I have only been able to manage to go over 3 pages of the book, so we're going to have to continue next week. Okay? On that note, if you would like to sponsor our Dharma sharings, any of the live streamings that we're doing, you can follow the link on the description. So before we end, I would just like to do a quick dedication to dedicate the merits that have been generated from this session, which is from me sharing what Rinpoche has taught us, especially through his actions, and also by you learning more about what Rinpoche was like, of more of the Dharma behind Kechara, behind how we do things. And also for the students that had the fortune of meeting Rinpoche and are listening to it now, you should dedicate the merits of remembering Rinpoche and what he did and how the things that he used to ask you to do, all those instructions that he asked you to do, and also that you had the fortune to be able to meet Rinpoche personally and have him give you instructions to be able to transform your mind. But don't forget that even just listening to the Dharma generates merits. So it would behoove us to do a strong dedication today. And also just want to remind everyone that whenever you do any Dharma practice, always make sure you do a dedication. Even if you do a good thing during the day, do a dedication, because you can turn that good virtuous action into merit. So just do a quick dedication. Chanjo Samjo Rinpoche, Makapanam Gekuchi, Kyapanya Mame Payang, Gonden Gondo Pewashu, Tony Tongwa Rinpoche, Makapanam Gekuchi, Kyapanya Mame Pay, Gonden Gondo Pewashu, Tatsujine Zapagewadi, Tandandumongun Langampat, Japajason Losan Rapai, Tampeni Purindu Sashesh, Kiewa Continua Dalamadan, Ramechiki Pala Lachochin, Sadamiam Giuntera Doji Janki Nupanutosh, Kiewadi, Nudoda, Lamasam Gerukune, Wachiku Malupa, Dei Salagopach, Chuki Gaposum Kapa. Chotsunama Pewala, Kechara Maziwada, Tungi Malun Samashu, Nadan Sendu Sundan, Ruwatotena Tene, Gawa Losan Tapai, Tampari Niva, Gucci, Nimodele Sandale, Nimegunyan Deleji, Nizantato Telepeo, Conjusum Rijinjilo, Conjusum Rinoruso, Conjusum Ritrashi, Show, Jetsunama Kuseram Tenjin, Namkatrine Chuchu Chapatan, Losentemedo Mesasum, Drowe Muzetatune, Gucci, Garinawe, Corvation come dear pendant de Mali Yuan, Cherneze Wontenzingatsui, Shapi City Partu de Huge, whom Tumbengo Malupa, then in Agles also, Codente Pelochina, Yobat Sochik Shukten. So, thank you everyone for joining today's session. Have a good day.